OMG. After Derek drained my phone balance, I later scored $40K from his childhood collectibles, 1000x my loss. What a twist. I attended middle school during the early 2010s, just before smartphones became prevalent. I received my first phone just prior to entering 6th grade. It was a slide phone that operated on a pay-as-you-go plan, charging $0.10 per minute for calls, and for each text message sent or received. Even worse, sending or receiving photos incurred a fee of $0.25 each. This made it quite costly, and my parents allocated only $100 per year for this expense. If I surpassed that amount, I had to make up the difference using my meager birthday and Christmas gifts. Luckily, most of my friends were considerate about helping me maintain my balance. They would call, and I would let the call drop, then immediately call back on a landline so it wouldn't register as a call. They typically communicated with me via email or Skype for most matters. Everything was going well until Derek became part of our group in 7th grade. Initially, we found him amusing, but we soon grew impatient with him due to his unpleasant behavior and numerous antisocial tendencies. He stirred up conflict within our friend circle and created trouble with kids outside the group. He was manipulative and always played the victim whenever others justly confronted him about his behavior. He also knew how to win over parents, making it difficult to exclude him from our group. He was the one individual who disregarded my phone limitations. He frequently bombarded me with silly memes, even after I had requested multiple times that he email or Skype them to me, since picture text messages cost $0.25 each. Unfortunately, blocking numbers was not an option with my pay-as-you-go plan, so I had no choice but to endure the constant messages. One day, he became irate for an unknown reason and flooded my phone with memes. He must have sent over 100 cat memes via text, continuing until my service was interrupted due to depleted funds. This resulted in my losing the remaining $40 in my account. I was extremely frustrated and demanded he reimburse me for the $40 he had cost me, but he refused and claimed it wasn't his concern. When I returned home from school, still angry, I shared the situation with my dad, expecting him to confront Derek's mother and demand the money. However, my dad said it wasn't worth the hassle. I even inquired about small claims court, but he explained that not every battle was worth fighting, and the effort was not justified for $40. He took me to the carrier store and loaded $50 onto my phone. The carrier changed my number and even managed to block Derek's number. Although they initially claimed blocking numbers wasn't feasible with my plan, my dad insisted and refused to leave until they complied. I felt incredibly anxious about my number potentially being exposed and other kids harassing me. Fortunately, that summer, my parents purchased iPhones and got one for me, and our new family plan included unlimited texts. Still, I remained upset about the $40 he essentially took from me out of spite. Fortunately, not long after, there was a major fallout between Derek and the rest of our friend group at the end of the school year, leading to his permanent removal from the group. He became a pariah in 8th grade, as no one put up with his antics anymore. He switched schools the following year, and we never heard from him again. Fast forward to a few years ago, when I returned home for several months between graduating college and beginning a new job on the opposite side of the country. One Saturday morning, I visited some garage sales and unexpectedly found myself at Derek's house. I recognized his mother, but she did not seem to remember me. I suppose glasses and a beard can change one's appearance significantly. I noticed some Pokémon napkins for sale, and when I picked them up to examine them, Derek's mom remarked that her son had been obsessed with Pokémon for his entire life, and that she was tired of Pokémon items cluttering her home for so many years. I replied that those napkins were for my younger cousin, who is greatly interested in Pokémon, and I asked if she had additional Pokémon items. She mentioned that she hadn't realized people still liked that, and that there were several boxes in the attic containing her son's old belongings. She actually invited me inside the house, which I never imagined I would do again, and allowed me to climb up to the attic to retrieve several large boxes for inspection. The first box contained Christmas ornaments and other miscellaneous items, but I was internally thrilled when she opened a box overflowing with Pokémon video games in their original boxes. I kept my composure outwardly, however. The main reason I had agreed to go inside was due to my hope of this very scenario occurring. I was well aware that Derek was mad about Pokémon. Our friend group enjoyed Pokémon even back when other kids found it uncool, but Derek's enthusiasm was on an entirely different level. He continually boasted about his Pokémon collection. At the time, he owned every main series game in its original packaging and in mint condition, a phrase he always felt necessary to include. I had visited his house once, and while showing me his collection, he scolded me for touching one of the games only he was allowed to handle them. He possessed many classic Nintendo games in fantastic shape, but Pokémon was his true favorite. He had dealt with a few incidents where his mom accidentally damaged or discarded his belongings not out of malice, but merely ignorance, as she did not realize the value of the games or collectibles. Fast forward to the present, and I was contemplating this when I asked his mother if she had any additional Pokémon items, which led to her revealing a treasure trove. We opened all the boxes she had me bring down. Within those boxes was the cherished collection of Pokémon games, all in excellent condition, along with several Nintendo consoles, hundreds of games, 24 binders full of Pokémon cards, and an assortment of Lego sets with their original packaging, including many classic Star Wars sets. When I spotted Jango Fett, I knew I had struck gold. I informed her that I also appreciated old Lego sets and inquired about the price for the 5 boxes of games, cards, and Lego sets. After a moment of thought, she said it would be $100 per box or $400 for all 5. I quickly agreed to purchase everything and rushed to an ATM. I loaded the 5 boxes into my father's truck and sped home. I realized there could potentially be tens of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise here. This was a once-in-a-lifetime find, and I finally felt vindicated for the $40 Derek had unjustly taken from me years earlier. I decided to give all the items to my uncle, who is a hobbyist eBay seller. He offered to manage the sale, willing to put the effort into selling everything individually, and despite my insistence, he said he would not take more than a 10% cut from the profits after covering fees and taxes. Together, we cataloged each item as well as their estimated values, and the total for everything came to approximately $40,000. The number 40,000 felt especially poetic, as it was 1,000 times the value of what Derek had taken from me years prior. My uncle managed to sell most of the items by the end of summer and ultimately wrote me a check. Although the amount was significantly less than $40,000, it still represented a life-changing sum for me, allowing me to pay off my remaining student loans and save the rest for a down payment on a new vehicle. Story 2. Aita F15, for not caring about my family. Note, I am not entirely certain whether any of this situation qualifies as abuse, but I could not think of a more suitable label. I apologize if this is poorly written. I am merely trying to express my thoughts. Here is some background information. I have 2 half-siblings from my father's side, 3 stepsisters from his side, a stepbrother from my mother's side, and 1 full brother. Complicated, I know. My parents separated when I was 2 years old, and my father gained custody of both me and my older brother. Before my birth, my father had been unfaithful to my mother with my now stepmother, let's refer to her as Karen, a pseudonym, who was also married at that time. This was the last straw in their already troubled marriage. Although I do not remember much of my early childhood, I do recall that the relationships among everyone involved were consistently strained. Allegedly, Karen would openly criticize my mother in front of my brother and me, and my father failed to intervene. I got along well with my older stepsisters, and my brother did as well. A year later, my little sister was born. Let's call her Carrie, and then a year after her, my little brother was born, whom we will refer to as Mark. All names here are fictitious for privacy reasons. I saw Karen as a mother figure and even called her Mom. We moved to a new home a few states away because my father wished to be closer to the mountains, and that is when I began to notice things deteriorate. Karen accused my older brother of molesting me. I was around 7 or 8 at the time, while he was 16 or 17. This accusation created a rift among us. I don't recall much about that period, but I remember her forcing us to attend therapy sessions and frequently screaming at my brother. She began engaging in petty behaviors, such as buying gifts for my younger siblings while neglecting me. She would permit them to hit me, and I was expected not to retaliate or complain because I needed to be the bigger person and make them stop myself. This physical aggression eventually escalated into bullying, which included spitting, shouting at me, stealing, and destroying my belongings. Whenever I reported these incidents to my father, he would either side with Karen or remain neutral, leaving us to resolve issues on our own. Karen would also sabotage me in small ways, such as tampering with my food. I was already an extremely picky eater, and for some reason, she took issue with that. I despised pepper, and she would intentionally overload my food with it, far more than anyone else received, making me stay at the table or grounding me if I refused to eat. Additionally, she would manipulate my clothing, buying me new outfits only to ruin them with super glue or oil stains, or they would simply go missing. Whenever I confronted her about it, she became defensive and would accuse me of daring to blame her instead of taking responsibility for my own forgetfulness. More than half of my childhood was spent feeling grounded or treading lightly around her, getting into trouble for what felt like even the slightest misstep. I realize this sounds dramatic, but that's how it felt. She created bizarre rules, dictating when and for how long I could shower, the temperature of the water, and would confiscate my belongings if I spoke to my mother on the phone for too long. Another rule was that I had to keep my television volume high, or it would be assumed I was trying to eavesdrop on other people's conversations in the house. There were many more rules, but detailing all of them would take far too long. She was excessively strict and controlling, often portraying me as a perpetual liar. My brother endured the worst treatment, often isolating himself in his room and resurfacing solely for meals to avoid her altogether. Fortunately, he managed to move out the moment he turned 18. Karen seemed obsessed with allegations of molestation. That year, she accused me of doing to Carrie what my brother had supposedly done to me years earlier. Of course, I did not do anything of the sort because I am not a monster. I was only 12 at that time, and I loved my little sister despite her cruelty. To make matters worse, my father again sided with her. She made so many ridiculous accusations that it was almost comical. According to her, I was a sociopath, retarded, her exact words when I had to take a remedial class in 8th grade, and a hoarder. I hoarded food in my room until it rotted due to extreme depression and isolation without any support. She claimed I was traumatized because of what my brother allegedly did, among other things. It became unbearable. By the time I turned 13, I was crying myself to sleep and wishing never to awaken. Throughout all of this, my father either was unaware or simply did not care about any of it. When Karen's mother passed away after a 6-month battle with brain cancer, she was particularly critical of my lack of empathy. I did not feel anything. It was not that I wanted her to die, but we were never close, and I certainly did not feel sympathy for Karen. If I did not comfort her in the manner she expected, she would become angry. Conversely, when I did provide feigned comfort, she would reprimand me for not being sincere. What was I supposed to do? If I do not feel a certain way, and you do not want me to pretend, I am left with no options. This experience was the breaking point for me, compounded by neglect regarding my medical, mental, and physical care. I was underweight, had multiple cavities that required tooth extractions, and often had to wear the same clothes repeatedly, resulting in bullying at school due to an unpleasant odor. I endured body shaming from her, being called a stick, too skinny, and flat. She would ridicule me for wearing certain attire, like high-rise jeans, because I did not have a figure. I was 13. Ironically, she had no room to criticize because she was significantly overweight and should not act like a fashion police officer when her clothing choices made her look like a clown. I recognize my harshness here. The following year, during the summer I spent with my mother, I decided to move in and stay with her. Fortunately, my father did not resist this decision. He wanted me to be happy, although I suspect it was also due to the fact that Karen's adult children had moved back in, which made it financially burdensome for him. Now, 2 years later, I am doing so much better that I genuinely do not care about ever seeing my half-siblings, stepmother, or father again. He has been attempting to improve his relationship with both my older brother and me after my mother disclosed everything I shared with her, but I honestly have no interest. What has happened in the past cannot be changed. I do not harbor any feelings toward my half-siblings, and even if I tried to maintain a connection, I doubt they would be receptive, as I am sure that Karen has already spread lies about me. I do not blame my half-siblings for their behavior, since it is Karen's fault they were raised like spoiled children, but part of me still feels resentful about it. Most of the time I was in trouble, it was because of them. Even after I moved out, Karen continues to interfere in my life. For instance, a few months ago, I was scheduled to visit my father in his new condo, which he moved into for work. I was uncomfortable sleeping on the couch there, so my mother arranged to stay in an Airbnb, where I could sleep at night and be with him during the day. However, on our way there, my father called to say that Karen was on her way, panicking and yelling at him because she did not want my mother in the same city as him. My mother immediately turned around, not wanting to deal with Karen's nonsense. She even blocked me on all social media, acting like a petulant teenager. So, am I in the wrong for not missing my father or siblings? My mother believes I should at least give my father a second chance since he is making an effort, but I do not wish to. Story 3. My fiancé revealed she's unsure about her sexuality. After 6 years together, she wants to be friends. I can't believe this is happening. My fiancé and I have shared a relationship for 6 years. There have been some positive and negative moments, but we have managed to navigate through them relatively well over time. We have been engaged for approximately 6 months. Recently, I noticed she hasn't been wearing her ring. I asked her unexpectedly if there was perhaps an issue with the ring itself, or if the band was bothering her. She started crying. She revealed that she felt embarrassed by the ring, which came as a surprise to me since I dedicated a great deal of effort coordinating with her about her ring preferences, and I felt terrible at first. How could I have gotten the ring so wrong? She mentioned that the ring was lovely, but whenever someone commented on it, she felt increasingly ashamed. I could not comprehend why. I was aware that she identified as bisexual, as we had discussed this extensively in the early stages of our relationship, and this was not a secret. She further explained that for an entire year leading up to our engagement, she became more convinced that she is actually a lesbian. She wanted me to propose as a way to test whether she truly was not attracted to men. This revelation devastated me. I asked how she could accept the ring if she believed she wasn't even attracted to me. She reiterated that it was merely a test to confirm her feelings. I was not angry, I just felt completely shattered. I have devoted the past year preparing our finances, planning for a home purchase, and daydreaming about our future together. Meanwhile, she was growing increasingly uncertain. I truly understand her feelings. It is frightening to make such a realization, and it can be scary not knowing how your partner will respond. I expressed this to her, hugged her, and assured her that I support her in being whoever she wishes to be. She expressed a desire to return the ring, and I encouraged her to sell it, discard it, or give it away. It was her ring, and I have no control over how she chooses to handle it. There is no obligation for her to discuss it further with me. Perhaps that was wrong. I believe a gift is given freely without expectations, including a ring. It belongs to her, not to me. She wants us to remain friends and continue living together, but I find this incredibly difficult. I feel a profound sense of loss surrounding me. I am bewildered and in shock. That being said, I do have deep empathy for her, yet I am emotionally shattered. I do not know how to interact with her in our home now. I feel a strong urge to flee and escape. However, she is in school and does not earn an income. I am the sole provider for us both. Her family is from another country and is not affluent. I genuinely worry for her. She is a lesbian in the United States, who may face financial hardship. Although she has grants, her living expenses will leave her with little to nothing. I do not want that outcome for her. I wish to support her. Yet, I discovered last night that I cannot manage living under the same roof as her. I am sleeping in another room, hearing her snore, and it causes me a great deal of pain. How can she find peace in sleep when I have not even been able to rest? I feel as though she never truly loved me. It seems like everything was a facade. I do not harbor hatred towards her, but I feel deeply dejected. I am overwhelmed by sadness and depression. What is wrong with me? My previous girlfriend also came out to me as gay, so this feels like déjà vu for me. I am utterly fatigued and suspect there must be something fundamentally wrong with me. I have no friends and only one living family member. And now my fiancé identifies as a lesbian. She expressed a desire to stay friends, but I doubt my ability to do that. I am willing to support her until she can move on, but I feel worthless. I am utterly repulsed by myself. I recognize that her feelings are not a choice. She is simply discovering who she is and honoring her needs. Nonetheless, I feel blindsided. I feel incompetent, as if this somehow reflects a deeper issue within me. Maybe my attraction is limited to women who identify as lesbians because I am a flawed man. This notion sounds ridiculous, but it reinforces my belief that I should abandon relationships altogether. There is something fundamentally broken inside of me. At work, I am well-liked, respected, and perceived positively overall. However, I struggle to develop any connections outside of professional settings. My social energy is so depleted that it is challenging to care about personal interactions. I prefer to remain at home and disengage. Work is incredibly stressful and socially demanding for me, providing a welcome respite from constant socialization. Yet, managing any kind of social contact seems out of reach. For these reasons, and due to the immense pain caused by her realization, I do not wish to be friends with her. I do not want to see her at all. Living in this rental home, surrounded by items we chose together for our anticipated life, is unbearable. The furniture, the dishes, the rugs, the linens, everything was selected together for what we envisioned. It feels deceptive. I know it is wrong to feel this way. Still, I feel profoundly betrayed. It seems everything I believed is a fabrication. I feel unattractive, ugly, pathetic, and empty. How could she suggest we remain friends? It seems patronizing. I feel absurd even typing this, but I truly feel shattered as a person. I am struggling to come to terms with this overwhelming shock and loss. I wish I could be entirely supportive and loving. I care deeply for her happiness and want her to find fulfillment with others who bring her joy. I just wish it could have been me. I fantasized about it being me. It was challenging to let someone get that close. I experienced a traumatic event with a girl during my youth. As a man, that is a source of great shame, and many men doubt it, which is why I rarely speak of it. However, I struggle with trust issues today stemming from that experience. With my fiancé, I extended significant trust and released many fears to reach this point. And now, that intimacy feels as though it was built on a lie. For an entire year, I invested in asking her to marry me, discussing it, selecting a ring, determining where to live, and speaking with lawyers about the visa process. I invested so much in her, including my time, resources, and trust. Nonetheless, I want to continue to give, and I resent myself for that. I want to be stronger in order to support her. I love her. I want her to feel at ease, and a part of me says I absolutely should not desire that I should be angry. But I can't seem to move to that place. She will encounter numerous challenges in the United States. She is intelligent and capable, yet she brings emotional complexities from her past relationships. If I can assist her, I believe I should because it is right, because she requires it. I still want to help, even if I know she doesn't love me in the same way I struggle to grasp what her claim of platonic love means. I wish I could stop caring. I wish I could think, look, she is not interested in you, and I do not expect anything from her. I doubt she will ever love me, nor do I think that my actions will lead her back to me. She is on a journey to discover her true self, which is her right as a human being. I just wish I could relinquish my sense of concern, a trait she seemingly has let go of. I felt her lack of love and compassion. She felt distant while delivering her news, as if she were a stranger. I wish I could switch off my warmth, allowing her to navigate life independently. I cannot bring myself to sleep near her. I do not want to see her. Yet, I care and yearn to support her, feeling an urge to push past these emotions. I despise myself for feeling this way, regardless of whether it is right or wrong. I wish I had the ability to simply turn off these feelings. Story 4. Aita for yelling at my husband over a video game. Hello, I am a 31-year-old female, and I recently raised my voice at my husband, who is 34 years old, during an online video game session in the presence of two of his coworkers, one male and one female, both aged 24, and his 21-year-old nephew. We engage in a non-competitive team versus team fighting game where we play casually. I observed that, whenever we played together, my husband would speak to me quite rudely over the headset if I did not perform according to his expectations. He did not display this behavior towards anyone else. It was specifically directed at me. I find this unfair because his coworker, who is a 24-year-old female, performs poorly, yet she does not receive the same kind of treatment. His manner of reprimanding me during the game resembled how one might scold a child or a disobedient pet, which I found quite embarrassing. Moreover, when we succeeded as a team, he would omit me from the celebratory acknowledgement, while his nephew readily offered me recognition during our online matches. This experience was incredibly frustrating and genuinely hurt my feelings. I even requested that my husband show me some instructional videos to improve my skills, hoping this would demonstrate my effort and persuade him to ease up. This approach did not yield the desired results. Eventually, I brought up my feelings after one of our gaming sessions, expressing that he sometimes criticized me when we did not perform well, but failed to acknowledge our victories. He remained silent. Later that evening, while we were all engaged in a match, I continuously sought assistance or healing as I was playing a tank character. No one came to my aid, leading to my growing frustration. I was managing the game as it entered overtime, waiting for my teammates to return to the objective after they were eliminated. Unfortunately, we lost, and in the aftermath, my husband's character died. He then made a sarcastic comment suggesting that his character's death was my fault. At this point, I was already upset because no one was supporting me, feeling aggravated that I had kept us in the game for so long, and I had been holding everything together alone until they respawned. This provoked an outburst from me, and I began to insult my husband over the headset in front of his coworkers and nephew. I expressed my frustration regarding the way he addressed me during the game, highlighted my lack of recognition from him, and how I had repeatedly asked for help without receiving any. I told him I was tired of his insults. In response, he claimed I was overreacting and that he had done nothing wrong. I mentioned, even name, my coworker who sometimes plays with us, agreed that you treat me unfairly during the game. This comment enraged my husband, who shouted, "Who the heck is Name anyway?" "Name is terrible at the game," I retorted. "And so are you, so what difference does it make?" To reiterate, I was extremely upset. None of us excelled at this game, and I failed to see how Name's performance related to the way my husband spoke to me during our gaming sessions. Then, my husband's coworker interjected, defending him by saying, "To be fair, he speaks to everyone like that." I responded, "No, he does not. I receive the worst of it." This comment frustrated me because I had never previously met this woman, and I was raised to believe that when a couple is arguing, others should refrain from getting involved. This incident ultimately led everyone to exit the game. The following morning, I approached my husband to check if we were all right, but he completely ignored me. There was no eye contact, no gestures, and no words exchanged. I proceeded to apologize, letting him know that I was sorry for my outburst and that I regretted losing my temper in front of others. I communicated that I felt he often criticized me publicly, but I still wanted to express my apology since I should not have acted that way in a public setting. Once again, he offered no eye contact, no gestures, and ignored me entirely before leaving for work. About an hour later, I received a series of lengthy text messages from my husband. He began by expressing how embarrassed he felt, which I could understand. He then accused me of disrespecting him by defending another man in front of everyone, which confused me, as I did not comprehend how my statement, "You are bad, so what does that matter?" could be interpreted as defending my coworker. He further referred to my coworker as my ex-boyfriend. He told his colleagues, "Her and her ex-boyfriend are out of the group," subsequently blocking us from the game. I found this immensely disrespectful. Why would he say such things about his wife to his coworkers? He also canceled our Valentine's Day plans, for which I had taken time off work. He declared that all of our plans were still canceled due to my actions, despite the fact that I had apologized first thing that morning. I also questioned him about why he believed I was defending my coworker, pointing out the hypocrisy of his coworker stepping in to defend him. He accused me of deflecting and attempting to turn the situation against him, which I denied, explaining that I was trying to understand the rationale behind everything, as it seemed absurd to be punished for raising my voice during a game. A game where he consistently belittled me, despite my previous requests for him to be more considerate. It is safe to say that I was quite upset and spent a significant part of my workday in tears. We have not communicated in the past few days, even though we reside in the same place. Attempts to engage him have turned into arguments, as he insists that everything is my fault, that he has no need to apologize, that he is justified in all his actions, and that he will not apologize for speaking poorly of me in front of his coworkers. He continues to disregard my previous apology and blames me for our lack of communication. I keep asking how I am supposed to talk to him when he refuses to listen, does not acknowledge his own faults, and stands firm in his beliefs about the situation. Whenever I ask for a conversation, he retorts, "Why should I?" I feel like I went from 0 to 10 when I yelled at him that night, but his reactions have escalated to excessive and unjust levels. While I can understand his hurt feelings reflected in the harsh messages he sent me at work, which likely stemmed from anger, I cannot accept the fact that he publicly disparaged me to his coworkers, canceled our plans, insulted me with remarks about my coworker, and flatly refuses to accept any accountability for his actions, particularly considering that this all spiraled from his unkindness towards me during the game and our previous discussion about this very issue. I really need to know if I am in the wrong here, because I genuinely feel that this situation could jeopardize our marriage if it continues down this path.